Good morning, Chelsea fans. We are here to break down the overnight news for the people in the United States, the early morning news for the people over in Europe, talking about Chelsea and seeing how they're going to kind of fix a couple of key holes and a couple of key moves in the next 48 hours or so. So we'll start off. Pierre-Emmerick Aubameyang for Chelsea. He's seen as a perfect striker. Barcelona are yet to receive an official proposal. It's interesting to see. Aubameyang is a player that's thrived under Tuchel before in Tuchel's system, 79 goals. And just a few seasons under Tuchel at Dortmund, it was the launching point to both of their careers. And we can understand why Tuchel says, okay, guaranteed goals under my system, guaranteed goals in the Premier League, it should work. And I think it would. I think Aubameyang would definitely secure some goals for Chelsea. I think you're talking about a guy who's not far removed at all from being one of the most feared strikers in the Premier League. But we do have to be a little concerned about his attitude, which I think would be okay under Tuchel. And then we have to kind of consider, is he going to be a similarly like a Lukaku type of guy? Aubameyang is able to press and move more when he is motivated. If Tuchel's able to motivate the player, I can understand the move, certainly. However, I'm not sure if it will work, but at this point, what do you have to lose? He'll cost 17 million euros approximately, which I think Barcelona would be keen to do because that's free 17 million. They got Aubameyang on a free last year. They have Lewandowski. Now, there is some concern that they might get rid of both him and Depay, because Depay is kind of leaning towards a Juventus move. Which they previously stated that they wouldn't do that. So I'm not sure what they'll do if this does happen. But I don't think Barcelona is in a position where they can turn down 17 million euros just for free. It could definitely help them register their players. Maybe Chelsea throws a little bit of extra in there if they can get this Frenkie De Jong deal done. Perhaps there is a loan or something to Barca to kind of fill the striker role, maybe Batshuayi or something like that. I'm just pulling stuff out of the air, but I'm just thinking that Aubameyang could be a good fit for Chelsea. I think that he is someone that could be successful for us, but we can't expect the Aubameyang of years past. But if he can come in and get us goals in big situations and be kind of a poacher around the net, I think that's something that would be pretty advantageous for Chelsea. So next, and probably now the most polarizing player on football Twitter, at least Chelsea Twitter, is Frankie De Jong. Bobby Vincent of Football London, and a couple other people reported that this morning that Chelsea remain confident of agreeing a fee with Barcelona for Frenkie De Jong. Gerard Romero yesterday put out a couple of transfer kind of deals, and it was about 64 to 71 straight up, and then about 7 to 12 million in bonuses that are kind of fluctuating between is it going to be a fee? Is it going to be a part of the bonus? We don't know that yet, but it's never really been an issue about Frenkie De Jong, the sale price for Barcelona, because we know what they accepted for Manchester United. They're keen to move on from the player. They want to bring Bernardo Silva in. However, is Frenkie De Jong willing to come to Chelsea? Now, I did see some murmurs on Twitter yesterday that the player, they talked to Todd Boehly and he said no, but as of Saturday, and as of kind of the last couple days, and we also saw on the byline from Alex Goldberg that Frenkie De Jong would want to come to Chelsea. Harry Redknapp said he's certain of it. So how do we kind of weigh all this information out? It's something that needs to be done relatively soon, but I'm not totally sure if it's something that is going to be done right away. If I'm Chelsea, however, I want to get this done right away because it is crucial for you to get these signings in and get them going, because I think De Jong is such an important player, and I've kind of been in back and forth with some people about De Jong. However, my stance is clear that De Jong is a world-class midfielder, and when you have the opportunity and you have a free run at signing the player, you have to do it. Because ideally, De Jong operates with a more traditional type DM, and to me, that's Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice isn't available this window, but that doesn't stop you from going and signing a player that you need for your whole project today. It just, you have to start building the midfield. And people are saying, well, we have Kovacic, we have Jorginho. Having too many good players is not a problem. And I understand that we could allocate our money elsewhere, but there's no players available in this window for that price range that we really could use. There's also no way that Todd Boehly is going to let this opportunity with financial fair play go past, because next year it's going to be tough. You're not going to be able to do what Todd Boehly's doing and spending $300 million in a window and just getting away with it. You can't. So this is the time. Time is of the essence. This is why Chelsea's squad rebuild had to be pushed into the next gear, because this is the time when they can spend money. Now, next summer, Chelsea may very well spend 150, 200 million, because Nkunku and Declan Rice are going to be two top targets, as well as Jude Bellingham. But this is the time to do it. You don't say no to a Frenkie De Jong because you have a Kovacic or a Jorginho. You just don't. You want to have as much depth in your midfield as possible. I just think that, it's so short-sighted to say, oh, well, how would we use him? Well, if we're linked to him, don't you think Tuchel has a plan for him? I mean, are you concerned about how we're going to use him when Tuchel is our manager and he's going to have a plan for his midfield for the next 5-6 years? I think he knows a little bit more about football than any of us, to be honest with you. I don't know what his plan is for De Jong, but I trust him. I trust that if he rates the player and he wants the player, we have to bring him in. It's crucial. Because if you can get De Jong and Declan Rice, now you have, for the next 3-4 years, you have Kovacic, De Jong, Declan Rice, one of Conte or Jorginho, it appears, Conor Gallagher, and now you're cooking, and Chukwuemeka. Now you have a lot of versatility in that lineup and a lot of players that can play different positions. I mean, people say, oh, well, De Jong is an 8. We have too many 8s. He could play a 6. Nowadays, midfielders are very hybrid and they can play different roles. I mean, look at Tchouaméni, look at Camavinga. They could play a 6 if they need to. They could play an 8 if they need to. They could play a 10 if they need to. You look at Kovacic and Conte and Jorginho, they all are specialists. They all have certain things that they're really good at, but they have other traits that they're not very good at. And I think that's what Tuchel is saying when he looks at Frenkie De Jong. De Jong can do a little bit of everything, and he's an elite passer. So he is a specialist, but he's not going to kill you on the other side of the ball. I mean, you look at when Kovacic and Conte get the ball in our third. They lose it. They turn it over. That's the problem of our offense. We don't have a dynamic midfield. Look at all the great teams in Europe. Liverpool, Real Madrid, probably going to be Barcelona soon. Bayern Munich. Elite midfielders. Elite, versatile midfielders that can do a little bit of everything. Why wouldn't you want that on your team? In my opinion, it's a no-brainer. You need to have that on your team if you're a Chelsea fan. Because if you're going to compete with those people, you have to be able to control the park. And I'm tired of losing balls in the final third. I'm tired of losing balls in our third. We need to get younger, and we need to get more well-rounded midfielders. That's why you saw Chukwuemeka signed. That's why you're going to see Frenkie De Jong signed. That's why you'll see Declan Rice signed. Declan Rice isn't just a DM. He can move the ball. He can pass. He can do it all. That's how the game is transitioning, but instead of specialists. So when you tell me we have a Jorginho and a Kovacic, well, they're older. They're getting older, and they're specialists. They're not what Tuchel wants. He inherited them. So if you're a part of I'm going to back Tuchel, and I hope the owners back Tuchel, that's what you need to see. You want to see Tuchel being backed, but if you want him to be backed on your terms, that's a bit of a double standard, no? Anyways, so Frankie De Jong deal is kind of moving in the right directions here, so we will see how it breaks down, and if we get some late news later in the day, of course, we will come to you with that news. Okay, an outgoing Maalang Sarr's loan move to AS Monaco with an obligation to buy should be confirmed by Chelsea later today. Aubameyang, you pick a player up on a free, you get him some experience. Monaco is now going to have an obligation to buy. Now, I think it's an obligation if he reaches a certain number of appearances. If not, great. If so, that's fine. To get a little money in off of him and to make a profit was always the long-term plan. Definitely not that good in terms of Premier League standards. But, he filled a role for Chelsea. He helped us get top 4. So, it is what it is with Maalang Sarr. I wish him all the best over in Monaco. Another outgoing Hakim Ziyech has instructed his lawyer to find alternative options to AC Milan this summer due to the slow speed of their approach. Thomas Tuchel is open to keeping Ziyech for another season despite his dissatisfaction at Chelsea. I think Ziyech wants to leave. I think that's cool with me. I'm happy to see him leave. Kind of a player that was signed for a back four under Frank Lampard. Never really got his feet under him. Scored some fairly big goals for the club, if you think about some of the FA Cup goals that he scored. Extremely talented. He kind of just doesn't have the attitude that I would prefer for Chelsea. But you can't deny his talent. I think the Premier League is a little too physical for him. So a move to Italy, Spain, Bundesliga would something, probably be a little bit more his speed. I'm kind of interested to see that second sentence there about Tuchel being open to keeping him. I think in terms of depth, if, Cho leaves and Timo leaves, then we're going to have to definitely consider doing that. But he's not going to be happy. Is he going to be a concern for the locker room? That's something that you all have to take into consideration. I wouldn't be sad to see him go, but if he stays, I understand it's probably just for depth reasons, and that's because other people were leaving first. So Hakim Ziyech might be leaving this summer. Kind of not new news, but sort of new news. So another piece of information from Ben Jacobs, who has kind of been a rising star on the scene this summer. As of now, a move for Frenkie De Jong is more advanced than a move for Wesley Fofana at Chelsea. Now, is that a deal between clubs? Certainly, I'm sure it is. However, I think Wesley Fofana is more keen to join Chelsea than Frenkie De Jong is at the moment. There is another bit of news in regards to Wesley Fofana. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Todd Boehly wants significant verbal talks with Leicester City over Wesley Fofana to discuss the structure of a move rather than a blind bid. I think that makes sense to me because if you look at how Chelsea is working, we don't hear they're in negotiations with Leicester. We're hearing they've submitted bids to Leicester, but none of the tweets or anything that we've seen have said, oh, well, they're in direct negotiation with Leicester City over Wesley Fofana. So I think Boehly is smart to kind of put this out there. I think meetings will be set to discuss this because I think Chelsea want to get this done quickly. And I think Leicester City are reluctant because they know that it's late in the window and they're going to start raising the price more. And could they find a backup? But if you're talking a world record fee, you think that you would be a little interested in that because that's kind of how Leicester City operate. Now, they haven't sold Maddison. They haven't sold Vardy. They've sold Schmeichel, but only for £1 million. No, haven't sold Tielemans. They might not. So I don't know. I think Leicester City would be kind of silly not to engage in more direct negotiations with Chelsea over Wesley Fofana, because this is, it's inevitable that he will leave and he wants to leave, and this could be a really big hindrance to them in the locker room. So I'm not sure if this is smart on their part, but I think this deal will get over the line eventually. It's just a matter of them kind of saying, all right, we got to sell. And I think Wesley Fofana needs to come up to the table a little bit and kind of say, I'm ready to leave. You've had a couple fair offers. Let's get this done, because I'm not happy with how this is going. So we'll see how this shakes out for Chelsea moving forward. But I think that it's going to happen. I think a move will be done eventually. Might just take another week or so, which wouldn't be good, because we could really use him against Tottenham. So speaking of Tottenham, we do have our Tottenham match preview coming up shortly in the next few days. The game is on Sunday, so you'll probably see that in your feeds and your notifications, and around midday or so on Friday. So please go ahead, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and we will get you that match preview very shortly. And if there is any late breaking news coming in before then, obviously we will go and talk about it right here on CFCDP. I want to thank you for tuning in with me this morning, and we will have an exciting rest of the window leading up to the big game against Tottenham Hotspur. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day.